Welcome to Dustin Cathro Book Reviews.
Hello everyone, Dustin Cathro here. I have bad news. I will be doing the book review, fear not. But something tragic has come to my attention many years ago. But it's really come into light now that I have read this book that I'm about to tell you about. But that there is a fear that many of us have, and it's coming true. And that fear is that education, in its essence, is conformity. And this might sound crazy coming in on this video, but if you don't obey, you fail. And that's why I want to talk about this next book, which is called Dumbing Us Down by John Gatto. This book unpacks not only the inefficiencies, but the design of the public education system. Not only that, but it actually explains it so thoroughly and so concisely that one, after picking up the book, cannot even look at the education system the same. And you start to ask yourself important questions like, what is the purpose of education? And what is the purpose of putting children in school? And these are really important philosophical questions that have a lot of meaning behind them. And so I'm going to dive right into this book, and in the first chapter, John Gatto talks about the 7 essentially hard truths about what school does. And the first one is confusion. The second one, class position. The third one, indifference. The fourth one and fifth one are emotional and intellectual dependency. The sixth one is conditional self-esteem. And number 7 is surveillance. So Gatto really talks about how the education system is designed to steal individual potential. And in its essence, the education system is trying to stop this because it's trying to create conformity. Because conformity is consistent, and conformity doesn't make people uncomfortable, and conformity also creates a predictable behavior. Children are no longer following their interests in school. They're stuck in these classrooms, usually in rows, and they're listening to topics that they're not even interested in, and the teacher's also not interested in them. It's boring. There's lots of boring stuff that you're learning, and the question arises is like, why and how is this applicable, and why should I be here sitting in this prison having to listen to this crap that is not that important? And I think that this is a common feeling that we all had in school, or at least any of us that experienced public school or university, is there's a lot of fluff, and it actually is a waste of your time because, time is obviously such a valuable thing, and we're sending these kids to these prisons essentially to listen to just fluff and crap. And evidently, Gatto in the book points out how literacy was better and people were better at things that mattered, like arithmetic, reading, writing. People self-taught. People in the community were going out there and teaching people how to do things. Can you imagine learning to do the thing that you end up doing by someone that already does it, and they just show you from when you're like a teenager even, and instead of putting all this time into doing these things that you're not interested in, that you just went and actually followed your interests and just cut all that crap and fluff out and got right to the meat of what you're interested in. And I think that is kind of at the heart of this book. It's saying we don't need a school reform. We actually just need to stop doing so much school. We need to cut the school out. Teaching in this book it shouldn't be a paid profession. Teaching should just be something that's a part of the community. Teaching should be just something that's a part of the community, and it's something that people go and do and to learn their new skill that they want to do, or to learn this job that they're interested in, or this field that they're interested in, instead of creating this huge hype and organization and monolith around how to do something. So when you try to please everyone, you don't really please anyone. I feel like that's kind of the public education system in a nutshell, even though Gatto doesn't really explain it that way, but it's kind of just like this monolith that isn't really effectively doing anything. In fact, stunting the potential and growth of all these young people who otherwise are not meeting their potential because they're wasting time doing things that don't matter to them. And most people could probably agree with that statement, I think. So I think that John is onto something here, and he's talking about how people need to bring back individuality and family and the importance of community, and how in school you kind of lose this community that we used to have not that long ago. And I mean that you're in a classroom with a bunch of people that are the same age as you, and you're not really getting anything more from them. Where if you're with, an older person or an elder kind of in your community, you're learning things and you're absorbing things that they've learned through their life, opposed to being around people that are all the same age as you, and you're just listening to one talking head, essentially, which is your teacher telling you what to think, what to do, and all of the things in between. Like this appeal to authority and expert who's just like talking to you and telling you what you need to do and how to do it, opposed to going out in the community and maybe having a couple different people talking to you, and they're a lot different ages, and there's so many different things that we're doing wrong. And education is not about sitting in a classroom. It's about actually going out there and learning something. And I think that's the problem, and a famous saying is don't let school get in the way of your education. And I think there is something to that. And I think is exactly what's happened, and that's what Gatto is saying and is so passionate about in his book, about all the brutal, horrible things that we're doing to kids. And I think that we could be doing better. And I myself also experienced this in school, where I'm just slugging through with C's because I don't care and I'm not interested, and I'm definitely not going to put that effort in, because I've never been the person that is going to put effort into something that I'm not interested in. And I feel like there was so much time wasted sitting there in these classes about just pointless crap, that is not applicable to my life now. And you just see that you could have been focusing on something that actually interested you. And it's interesting to look back at that in reflection and say, hey, wow, it's a big waste of time. And I think that this book is really trying to say that people need to take it by their own reins again. Does that mean to homeschool? Maybe. Maybe it does mean to homeschool, because homeschool kids actually are 5 to 10 times more advanced than children that are not homeschooled. Inconvenient fact. And Gatto makes a point of this, that if people are doing something themselves, it's a lot better than a paid teacher doing it. An interesting thought is that Socrates, back in the day, he actually was saying how if teachers became paid positions in communities and society, that this would become a problem, and that he essentially predicted what the situation that we're in now, thousands of years ago. Socrates being the most influential, philosopher that he is, not most, but an influential philosopher. So I think that is something to take into consideration, that we are not meeting our full potential, and that maybe we should look at teaching as something that is not a paid position in society. And that seems like an extreme idea, I'm sure, to some. That's very threatening to careers, and that's very threatening to the monolith that I was talking about, which is essentially, governing our society in some way or form into this conformity that is very unsatisfying and very unhappy. And I think that many people can attest to that we live very unsatisfying lives, and we sometimes wonder why, and we're like, oh, we're doing all these stupid jobs that nobody cares about because we don't even know what we want, because the first lesson in John Gatto's book is confusion. It's the very, very first lesson he teaches is confusion. And I think that that's a very important thing to consider. It's like, why don't I know what I want to do? It's because maybe you were never put into an environment where you can learn and be who you are. And maybe that is by design. And that is a frightening thought, to think that by design we might not know who and what we are. It's called social engineering. And man, it will scare the shit out of you once you start reading about it. I think Gatto is really inspiring in this book, and like to make a conclusion about this thing, it's like you got to do it yourself. That is essentially what he's saying. Like you got to take the bull by the horns here, and you got to follow and pursue what you think is your interest in. You got to create the opportunity yourself, and you can't be stuck in mediocrity in school doing these things and wasting really important time that you could be doing to learn the thing that you love. And also the unknown potential that you have, and the unknown potential that you're holding back by wasting time doing these things you don't want to do. Now, it's not supposed to be this like inspirational speech or anything, but it's kind of supposed to be this thing where it's like you got to get your shit together and do what you got to do. And if you don't, you're probably going to end up another brick in the wall. And that's the reality behind that. And I think that this book is actually trying to avoid people from that tragedy. And he's trying to let people know, like, maybe you should homeschool your children. What does that look like? Can you do it? Can you find like-minded people to do it? And as a person that has a young and growing family, these are things that are really important to my wife and I, and we really want our daughter to have this like great opportunity to actually pursue what she wants and enjoys and is interested in, and not be this other brick in the wall, and not just be pursuing these meaningless objectives that are set up by these bureaucratic industries that create millions and billions of dollars of revenue off of things like boring textbooks and technology in the classroom that's unnecessary and actually hindering children. And so there's this giant world that's boiling up under this book that Gatto's not talking about, but there's a big movement against public education, and I think that this book is really talking about that, and this is 30 years ago talking about these problems, and here I am talking about them right now, and they're still here, and it's gotten worse, everyone. The addiction, the education, let's call it. Children cannot read, write, or do arithmetic as good as they used to. That is a fact. And it keeps getting worse. And there's a bunch of other social issues, divorce is up, broken families are more common. Everything is getting worse, and I'm not to blame just the education system on this, but to say that this is an element, it's a cog in the wheel that keeps spinning here. And I think that we should consider any and all possibilities on how to fix the current broken society. And I think that the main thing to take from Gatto's book is do it yourself. Do it. Make it happen. Like I said, take the bull by the horns and take it on. Become whatever you need to become. Drop out of school. It's so crazy. I know. I can't believe it. Drop out. Because it'll be the best thing you could do. You'll learn so much not being in school. Way more than you would. Way more. Like, school's holding us all back in this sense, and I think that Gatto knows it, working in the field for 30 years and writing this book 30 years ago, So in conclusion, I think that this book is really capturing, in essence, individuality, just like my last book review. It's so important if you want to succeed or feel satisfied or live a life that's meaningful, be a part of a community that's meaningful. Fix your own life first, and then move outside of that. Fix your life, fix your family, and then when you're ready, to the neighbors, to the community. That's how it has to happen. That's how change has to happen. As the great Jim Morrison said from The Doors, even though there's a lot of things I probably disagree with about that guy, but he really was onto something, that the revolution is an individual revolution. Just paraphrasing him, but it really is. And every day as I get older and I think about these things, it's like it's me that has to be better, and by doing that, the people around me get better, and it's this growing thing that we each have individually to do and to change on ourselves. So it's not an inspirational speech, but holy crap, change yourself. Okay, thank you guys. Till next time.